And I have
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. Dear Vice Dean of the Coimbra University, Professor João Ramalho, representing the magnificent rector, dear Director of the Faculty of Medicine, Professor Carlos Rebol Cordeiro, dear Professor Paulo Nunes de Abreu, representing HDF, Health Data Forum, dear speakers present at this event or following us in streaming, a special greeting to the Ambassador of Portugal in Prague, Ambassador Luís Almeida Sampaio, to whom I thank for his availability to participate in this forum and intervene in the closing session despite his very busy schedule. I would like to welcome everyone to this forum dedicated to biobanks and health research, challenges and opportunities. We will present the brand new biobank of Coimbra's Clinical Academic Center, a consortium formed by the Centro Hospitalar Universitário de Coimbra and University of Coimbra. We will discuss the main challenges and opportunities in clinical and translational research and the role of biobanks in enhancing the quality of research. The CAC-SHUC-UC University of Coimbra Biobank started on September 19th, 2022. And on the very next day, it received the first collection of samples from the Portuguese Society of Cardiology within the scope of the Porto study. Porto stands for Portuguese Heart Failure Observational Study. The CAC Biobank already ensures the cellular characterization of the samples, and in the near future, it will be possible to carry out the molecular characterization, making these collections even more attractive to the scientific community. This forum is an excellent opportunity to present the CAC-SHUC-UC Biobank to the scientific and clinical communities in order to leverage new clinical and translational research projects and contribute to the transformation of the health value chain towards better clinical results, greater patient and professional satisfaction, and better use of public resources. I hope you enjoyed this morning's work and that we can reach some conclusions on how to overcome the challenges and enhance the opportunities that biobanks represent in the fields of research, knowledge, and innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this warm welcome. Next to the stage in this opening session will be Professor Carlos Rebol Cordeiro, the Director of the Faculty of Medicine of Coimbra University.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here in the opening of this 6th Digital Health Portugal. Congratulations for the organization. My first words is to the Vice Rector of our university, my dear friend João Ramalho. I would like to wish you a successful mandate that starts very recently this month. I think your success will be also our success, because We are very committed in the Clinical Academic Center of Coimbra, in which concern research and innovation. So I think we have to work a lot together. And I'm very happy that you assumed this position recently. Dear CEO of my hospital, my boss in the hospital, it's a pleasure also to be here with you. My words to you are really of your commitment, to show your commitment on you have on these issues on research and innovation as we are dealing with here in Coimbra Academic Center. Paulo Nunes de Abreu, thank you for this invitation and for thinking on the Coimbra University Hospital for organizing this sixth Digital Health Summit. For me, it's important to be here for several reasons. First of all, because Clinical Academic Center is really committed with this in this field, and I think this is this meeting is organized around the Biobank, and the Biobank is one of the flagships of the Clinical Academic Center. I would say that it is together with the PET system the main achievements we had in the Clinical Academic Center together with the both main institutions, so university and university hospital. So it's very important to have this discussion around the Biobank, and I would like also to congratulate Professor Turpaiva, the director of our Biobank, and all the team that is here for this great achievement we had recently. Secondly, because digital is here, I think pandemic really raised the interest and the importance of this tool. Well, it's everywhere. It's the agenda of research and innovation everywhere in the European Union, and also in our university and also in our hospital. So it's really a good basis for discussion, and hopefully we will have very nice discussions and presentations this morning. And thirdly, because being not only dean of the medical school, but also a doctor here in the hospital, we are struggling with some problems, of course, with regarding digital. I never understood why we have different systems in Portugal hospitals, that difficult our relations regarding the different platforms. We have a council of the medical schools in Portugal, where, for instance, we are trying to get access, to have access to our students for the electronic system in the different hospitals, and it is really being really difficult to have this. Not because of, it's not the fault of our hospital, it's not the fault of our university. It's really the problem of the system. And so I think it is something that has to be solved, to have common platforms, to have an electronic record and registry of the file, of the patient file, that could be that easy, that patients are in holidays in the south of Portugal and suddenly have to go to a doctor, to I would say a primary care setting, and to have all the information in that electronic card. This is something that has to be done, and I think this is also an opportunity for discussing, even outside Portugal, because I think what we are willing is to have mobility of our patients and access to the main and the best care, patient care in an European basis and not only in Portugal. So with all this, I think this is good to have this opportunity to assist to this summit on the digital health. And thank you for inviting me, and congratulations again on the organization.
Thank you very much for your kind words, and it's really a pleasure for Digital Health Portugal to be here in Coimbra. And as we know, and this is more directed to the viewers that are following us in Portugal, our country normally is famous to be in between two cities, you know, Lisbon and Portugal. But for anyone living in the center of the country, and everybody knows that, and sometimes we are facing natural disasters, Everybody knows that if the helicopter brings you to Coimbra Hospital, you are in the best hands, because here the cutting edge research is being conducted. And in fact, it's quite extraordinary to be in a city within one of the oldest universities in the world. And we have here guests from the United States coming to this meetup. And it's really a pleasure for us to be hosting this event here in Coimbra. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce the chair of the session, Professor João Ramalho Santos. It's in representation of the Dean of the University, Professor Mikhail Falcão, could not join us today, but we have a very good replacement. It's a full professor in cell development and reproductive biology, so much more related to biobanks, and I'm sure he's going to address a few words with us and put some backgrounds for the challenges that the research is facing and how biobanks can contribute to fast track the cure for many diseases we are hoping for. Without further ado, Professor João Ramalho Santos.
Well, hello, good morning, everybody. A month ago exactly, I was not, if somebody told me I would be standing here in behalf of the rector, I would have said, yeah, sure. But yeah, things happen. So I'm very happy to be here. The rector sends his regards. He apologizes for a last minute hiccup that made it impossible for him to be here. So thank you to our hosts, both in terms of the Digital Health Portugal, Paulo Nunes Abreu. If anybody who calls himself a fire starter I think is an interesting title. That's his official title. It's right here. I think this is really cool. I mean, it's incendiário in Portuguese, which really I don't think means the same thing. But as an accelerator, I think that's exactly what it means in English. So I think that's an excellent title. Professor Carlos Santos, of course, the director of SHUC, has been outstanding in creating a research clinical environment here, and I think he should be acknowledged for that. And of course, my dear friend, Professor Carlos Cordeiro, director of the Faculty of Medicine, for his kind words. I'm not sure, I'm not used to them right now, but let's see in a year from now how it goes, okay? And then you can throw stuff at me or whatever. Anyway, why are biobanks important? This is, as Professor Cordeiro mentioned, as Carlos mentioned, is one of the biggest investments that was made here, together with the PET scans, if I'm not mistaken. Those are the two main things that we're heavily invested in. And why do we need biobanks? Well, it's pretty obvious. And by the way, I would like to thank, on a personal note, both Professor Alberto Orfão, who is in Salamanca, and who has been a friend of the University of Coimbra for many years, both of the Faculty of Medicine and the General Council of the University of Coimbra, and my friend and collaborator, Professor Artur Paiva, the director of the Biobank. I'm sorry, Artur, we probably won't win Best Paper Award, which we won in 2022 for a paper that we published together. I don't think we'll be able to publish many more in the near future, but we'll try. Okay, that's what I can promise you. My goal is to build up your CV as well. Anyway, so why do we need these things? We need them. Half of my research team, I'm a biologist, as Paul said, but half of my research team is actually down the road at the hospital, and one of my collaborators is Artur, and we've done so for many years. And what we do is to try and link biological mechanisms and biomarkers, whatever you want to think about it, with clinical data. And for that, you need both a huge amount of well-characterized cohorts, which the hospital does have, and samples. We need samples. Otherwise, we're not going to do anything. If we're going to further on with the genomic medicine, and Professor Gateiro is here heading a project on that, and the thing I was doing a month ago was writing a comic book to divulge genomic medicine to the general public. So that was kind of interesting. So if we're going to do that, and if we're going to move forward with this research in a more broader sense that it is truly useful for a general population, not just Coimbra, I mean internationally, it has to be international, otherwise it's not useful. We need these sorts of well-characterized samples together with clinical histories and all these sorts of things in well-characterized cohorts. And we have possibility to do that here. And I think we can't help but take advantage of it together with other people who are going to be here talking about their expertise in biobanks throughout the years. I think this is extremely important. And we are here in Coimbra, we have to run fast to stay in the same place. compared to the other two cities that were mentioned. So if we want to go somewhere, we have to run twice as fast as that. And we have to be more disruptive, more fire. We have to start more fires, better fires, more controlled fires. We're also very good at fire controls here at the University of Quebec. But anyway, that's another thing. We really need to do this. And we probably can't be great at everything, but we can be great at some things. And that's also a challenge, just to identify the things we can be truly, truly great at, and be very good at the things that we need to provide as services to the public, and great at some of the things that we can provide service to the world, basically, if we want to put it in a more bombastic manner, so to speak. And I see some researchers here who have interest, for example, in cardiology. I can see two of them from where I stand. Over there, Professor Lino Salves over here. If that's Professor Lino Salves, I think it is. Anyway, and I would also like to thank Tiago Falfar for his effort in helping put SHUC on the map in terms of R&D development. It's been extremely impressive to see, as a researcher, not as a vice rector, which I was not until 15 days ago, but as a researcher. We feel that there's a different sort of environment here that we can start other things, clinical trials, all sorts of other things that I think can be extremely useful in pushing the ecosystem of knowledge further and thus progressing in the value chain. Those are things that I've learned recently. Well, not so recently, but anyway. So, welcome everybody. I hope it goes extremely well. I am looking forward, well, not myself, but collaborators of mine, I'm looking forward to collaborating with the Biobank and doing better research with it, doing more consequential research, forming networks for European projects, which the hospital also has been extremely active in. I'm right now in the Excellence Hubs, which the hospital is also involved in, with the CREET. There's a bunch of others. And this is really a game changer, I think, in terms of Coimbra. By the way, running twice as fast as to go somewhere is from Through the Looking Glass, Lewis Carroll. It's not Alice in Wonderland, it's Through the Looking Glass. I like to quote my sources. Finally, another source I would like to quote is this. When we were starting the research project called MIA, the Institute for Aging Research, one of our partners is Groningen, or Groningen, if you want to call it that. And Jorge Figueira, who is involved in this project, went there and asked, what kind of problems do you guys have and how do you solve them? Because there's always problems, right? There's always problems. And sometimes they're real problems, sometimes they're stupid problems, but there are problems. And they said, we just use the Groningen method. What the hell is that? So he Googled it and he couldn't find anything. So he asked, what is this? Well, the Groningen method is this. The main stakeholders in the city, mayor, university, polytechnic, hospital, whatever, get together once a month for lunch and talk. And in a parallel lunch, they're seconds in command, they're the people that actually then move the policies forward, assessores in Portuguese, also have lunch and talk. I think that would help solve probably 90% of the problems that we have here, not only in this city, but in this country as a whole. We're much better than what we do. And we have to be better. That's what I'm here for. So I'll hope to have lunch with several people in the coming years. Well, or just a drink, or a meanie, a beer, anything, to keep the dialogue going so we can solve problems before they happen and we can talk to each other frankly, because I think that's what science is all about. So thank you very much. And I've talked way too much than I thought I would. I was just going to say welcome. and then here we go. Anyway, thank you very much and have a nice meeting.
Thank you so much. We couldn't have a better opening session. And guess what? We are ahead of time. So thank you all for our dear viewers and social reactions that we have. Besides the applause here, the human applause, the reactions on social media. It's great that we are having you with us here also in the social media channels where we are live broadcast right now. We have 10 minutes ahead of the schedule. So I know that these gentlemen are busy, but perhaps we can have here a quick conversation, maybe if you have time for the 9:30 until, and thinking about this main challenge. From what I've seen here, we have really the perfect combination for success in terms of research in Coimbra. So what will be in terms of public policies, what could be done that could be even fast-track the work that is being conducted here in the field? And this is perhaps a question for anyone that would like to answer in terms of what public policies could be, and even examples from other countries, as we soon will have here our guests, moderators from Digital at Portugal.
Well, I can start.
Yeah, you can start from there, yes.
Okay.
It's okay, you can
It's
speak.
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I can start. Well, I think what we are promoting here is what we have to do, and it is really we used to speak on the Coimbra health ecosystem, and it is true. The ecosystem it's this and much more than this, but it's the close relation, the proximity we have, not only physically, but also in terms of having the same aims and sharing the same platforms, using the same tools, and of course, in order to improve the best research we can do here in the Clinical Academic Center. One of the important things, and I think we are, to answer quickly to your question, I think we are now promoting much more this, with this good atmosphere, I would say, that we have between the university, Faculty of Medicine, the hospital. It's to engage much more clinical doctors in the research and the innovation field. And so having, as we have in our medical school, not only teachers, but also researchers, career from the basis, the researchers. We are, and this is being done, I think, very efficiently on the last, I would say, months or years. We are promoting a much closer relation between the research, the basic researchers and the clinical doctors, in order to have the tools to answer clinical questions. The problem is, I think this is for me the most important public policy that we can implement here. We have clinical problems, we have clinical questions, and we have the tools to from the as it is being said, from the bench to the bedside, to solve it and to have answers to these clinical questions. So this close relation between basic researchers and clinicians working in the hospital, professors or not professors, I think for me it's the best, I would say, field for having good results in research and innovation in terms of the medical field.
Okay, we have still time for 2 more interventions, Dr. Carl Sands, and then finally, perhaps Vice Dean will like to conclude.
Thank you. The intervention of Professor João Ramalho Santos was for me very inspiring. I think that one of the great, I have to heard it again because it is a record, I think. One of the great obstacles of the innovation policies, I think, is the silos culture. We have to destroy this way of thinking, this way of organizing things in silos, and we have to be more horizontal approach to research, to knowledge, and to innovation. And yes, as Professor Carlos Cordeiro said, we have it all in Coimbra. And for the Groningen method, I have to say that in Coimbra and in Portugal, we have better food than in the Netherlands. So we have it all.
Thank you so much. Last comments, please.
Better wine.
Okay. Well, inspiration is great, but you have to do something. I mean, it can't just inspire and then go away. So things have to happen. That's something that I've learned throughout my years, and that's what we plan to do as much as possible. Carlos touched on a very important issue. People have to be available intellectually, available mentally, and available in terms of what their profession is. I mean, I have two clinicians in my group. One has just defended her PhD. The other one will defend soon. They all have published papers. They all worked in the lab. But I realize when I'm talking to them, I have to have 10 minutes to talk to them, not 2 hours, because they are too busy. And we have to move around that and help them with other sorts of people who also needs to have some sort of career development plan and employability, right? Otherwise, this won't work. If we're dealing with people who then do stuff and then are not employed or not employable and not part of the team or just precarious members, that won't work either, in my view. Okay, and we need to start building things and be aware that this takes a while. In Groningen, they started collecting samples as part of a huge project on aging of people. They've collected samples for 40 years. Okay, so they have and they have the clinical data from those people as well. So they can do, you name it, studies on aging. Like, we can't do that right now, but if we can start doing something like that in the future, and we have a strategy for this, and the strategy is not broken because somebody else comes in and, oh, now this is all rubbish and we have to build over again, which is another problem we have besides the silos. That's another problem we have here. So we have to have a common goal. This is a common goal in Groningen in the north of, which is very far away if you've ever visited the Netherlands. It's not like the 10-minute ride from one city to the next. So they are the, I won't say they are the Coimbra of the place because it's not exactly that, but they are in the margins of the Dutch system, and they built their own value system and their own hypotheses and their own inspirational stuff, I guess. To build things. I think we could do the same thing. And yes, not with everybody, because it's impossible. Most people don't want to. I'm sorry, that's just the truth. This is less inspiring, I know, but it is the truth. But with the ones that want to, and then build it as an example, and then contaminate others, because nothing contaminates academics or clinicians or whoever than other people's success. That's my personal goal, my personal vision of this sort of thing. So if you can contaminate this, people will want, oh, I want in on this. How do I do? And then we'll have a training method for them. I think that has to happen as well, to make people aware of this can be good for everybody, for their careers as well. And I think that's what I can say in terms of starting fires.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. A round of applause, please. And thank you so much for having this unexpected live chat here. I also want to also invite you, please, to remain in the room if you can. And for the ones who cannot be in the room, I think Dr. Carlos Santos is kindly offering for all the guests a lunch later on. So if you can join us at lunch. And for the participants here, coffee break will be served at 11 and break. I would like to call to the stand George Matthew, who's in the room, and the second round of panelists. George Matthew is our advisory board member in the Digital Health Portugal, but he's also Chief Medical Officer of Deluz. It's an important multinational company that has a strong footprint in all over the world. And George is a medical doctor, fulfilled many previous duties, and it's an honor to have him as our advisory board member. Other panelists can please join the other panelists in the room that can please join the session. Professor Tiago Alfaro. Bons dias. Yeah, here. Please take your seats. And we are quite on track. It's still 9:30, and we're going to start momentarily. I also would like to know, José Carlos, we have the speakers from remotes, if we can bring them to the room now, to the virtual room we are creating here. Fantastic. Buenos dias. Good morning. Professor Alberto Orfron is also live now from Salamanca. he wanted to come here in physically, but having traveled for all of the week, it was almost impossible. So it's a great pleasure to have your presence here virtually, Alberto. And also, I think, Alexander, you are online. Good morning, Alexander. Guten Morgen. We don't hear you right now, but I think the sound will be clear in a few minutes. Audio is good from the remote speakers. Okay, George, I think the ball is yours now. And
thank you very much. Can you hear me? I just want to make sure. Thank you. Thank you for letting us come here to talk about Biobanks. Chief Medical Officer for Daedalus out of the United States. Very honored to be asked to come here. Very honored asked to come here. Very honored asked to come here. Quick introduction of themselves. From your perspective, given your experience and what you've seen in the past, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So my name is Tiago Alfaro. I'm the head of the R&D department of the Centro Hospitalar Universitário de Coimbra. That's the name of our hospital. And this department, of course, has the main purpose of fostering research in the hospital and the partners of the hospital. And the biobank, for me, as someone who tries to foster this research and to actually do something we just heard a few minutes about, the physician researcher, having a biobank that was already projected before and has been built and is now working and working very well. It's a big novelty for researchers from the hospital, because doing medical research or biomedical research, usually you need to collect biospecimens, you need to test them, you need to work with somebody, usually a partner in the university. And now you can do it with all the quality, with all the tests, with all the ethical and legal issues solved. And having this opportunity for the researchers in this hospital, I think it will help a lot of people in this hospital wanting to do research. Of course, in a more global level, these specimens that are stored in the biobank that are then given for more research are, of course, helping research in general, helping the world, helping the health for the Portuguese population. But as a very internal and directed view for me, it will help researchers at SHUC to do much better research with better biospecimens, better analysis, and will allow them to grow and to also be inspired to do more. It will be fostering success, and as we just heard, other people will see success and will want to do it more than that. For me, that's the main take on the advantage of having this nice biobank here.
Extremely passionate about it. This will be very helpful for the discussion. Sir.
So good morning, everyone. So I am the coordinator of the Coimbra Biobank. As Dr. Carlos Santos told early in the morning, we are a recent created biobank. So we started our activity in September 2022, and with a very emblematic and important collection promoted by the Portuguese Society of Cardiology, which enrolls more or less around 6,000 donations. And at this time point, we have already 3,000 donations, which corresponds to more or less 30,000 samples. So the main goal of our biobank is to try to accelerate the translational research in Coimbra region in collaboration with the hospital and, of course, with the university researchers. And of course, despite we are a newborn biobank, we have some important concerns. And the first one I would like to put in discussion is about sustainability. How a biobank becomes sustainable. And I think it's more or less clear in my mind that the incomes that could arise from the proposed collections or even from the samples request is not enough. We need to look forward in different ways to achieve a sustainable biobank. And the second important point, because at least in my mind, a measure of the biobank success is the number of outgoing samples. So how we can promote and create attractive collections to increase the number of the requests from the researchers. So these 2 points that are very clear that is important to have good answers for them.
I'd like to come to those near as we get closer to the second half of our discussion,
Okay.
because I will want to ask all of you to talk about the foundation of when you start thinking of building biobanks. But obviously, sustainability and collection and the incoming and outgoing aspect of it, controlling it, is very important to keep it functioning.
Okay.
I just want to introduce everyone to
Okay.
our panelists online. Do you mind giving quick introductions of yourselves as well?
Shall I go forward or Alexander first?
I'm fine with both ways. I can start if you want.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Alexandra Stiegel. I'm into biobanking since 2006. From my professional background, I'm a molecular biologist, and now I'm the operational manager of the Central Biobank at the Charité. We are I'm really deeply involved in different topics like sustainable establishment and running of biobanks, as well as the reuse of samples in further research. That's in short.
So I'm Alberto Orfao, professor at University of Salamanca, and I have started the first biobanks in Spain in the 1990s, and leading for more than 20 years now the Spanish National DNA Bank as a scientific director. So I think this is the main reason why I'm here today. Good morning, everyone.
Right. Sorry, we keep on getting an echo feedback from our audio. So I keep on hearing myself on the side. My apologies for the distraction. Let's start with the beginning of the creator's perspective of creating a biobank. When we look through the creation of biobanks, the first step seems to always be regulatory, looking to see what the current laws are, what's allowed for a biobank. Alberto, you know, since you were the last person to introduce yourself, but also one of the earliest creators of a biobank, and Thiago, if I remember from our conversation yesterday, much of what Portugal has done is based on a lot of what Spain has done for their biobank. Can you start to talk about some of the regulatory changes that have happened that either assist or make it difficult to create a biobank in this day and age?
Well, I have to say that when we started in Spain, there was no regulation. So this was one of our major concerns, and we really discussed a lot looking in 10 or 20 years forward what might be the regulations. So we pushed the ministry really to have regulation, which ended up coming out for the first time in July 2007. So almost 10 years after we started. We really had the opportunity to participate and advise from our side on how we saw the situation. So I think at present, Spain has a very clear regulation about the biobanks, which really on one side protects donors but on the other side, promote biobanks and the sharing of samples and data supporting research.
Alberto, from from a trial and error perspective, if you will, what are the most important regulatory advances that have come in that you feel not only protect participants, but have also advanced biobanks to be useful, to be active for use for COVID-19 or for oncology research? What regulatory rules, based on your own learnings, have become the most important ones?
Well, the most important aspects are, first of all, the informed consents. Second, the possibility, in contrast to a sample collection that was collected in the setting of a research project or a clinical trial, the possibility of a second and third usage of the samples if they are stored in a biobank through certainly mechanisms of evaluation based on external ethical and scientific committees. And the third, assuring that a sample that has been collected and that represents a unique resource within a collection will be used for scientific proposals that will really benefit the community. So I think these are, in general terms, the three main aspects that the regulation brought in terms of quality and guarantees of donor protection, quality of samples, possibility of more efficient use, and higher benefit of usage of the sample.
Switch to Alexandra. Alexandra, from your experience, is it similar to what Alberto has said based on what he's seen over the last 2 decades?
Yes, of course. So we made a lot of success in how we can share samples with other researchers and maybe other institutions by having national and sometimes of European-wide focus on topics like informed consent. Maybe we can say broad consent. That's a really how can I say an important step that we are able to use broad consent during the collection of samples, so we are able to share this with other researchers or institutions, because samples, especially when we have a look at rare diseases, have a really high value, and some research aspects can only addressed by the use of several collections European-wide. We see, especially at the COVID pandemic, that was really, how can I say, it was something like a push for everything to open up and to collaborate between different to foster the collaboration between the biobanks and as well as the clinicians.
And Arthur Tiago, regulation.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with the words that Alberto has told us. I think that this is really important to have a good informed consent that, from one hand, protect the participant and the donation, and on the other hand, allow different researchers to ask for the samples. And for sure, you need to closely work with an ethical commission and with a scientific commission that regulate the activity of the biobank. On the contrary, that happens in Spain, in In Portugal, there are clear rules and regulation at this time point, the biobanks activity.
I would like to say by this, the ecosystem of health in Coimbra was a big help because as a huge university with a lot of experience, we also have a lot of experience, or colleagues with a lot of experience in bioethics. And so we gained from the experience of the university, again, this ecosystem quite nice working in Coimbra, and that allowed us to help solving some of these difficulties in starting a good informed consent, all the good quality of data privacy and data safety. But it helped us having this required wide consent for the samples that we will be receiving.
Yeah. No, and we had a bit of a discussion earlier the other night, and we had talked a bit about, at least where I am in the States, we don't have as stringent a privacy law, at least when it comes to data, much less biobanks. And one of the things that came up in one of the clinical research meetings that I was moderating was the difficulty of GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. Obviously, much more recent than some of the biobank work that Alberto has done, but may or may not have been based in part because of it. Because of the fact that it's really important for people to be comfortable with how their data is being used. Many of the principles are similar, but the tension that we sensed was it is, at least from the state side, a big regulatory hurdle because of the compliance issues, because of the requirements of data privacy officer. Tiago, though, told me otherwise the other day. If you'd like to talk about some of the GDPR, because from our perception, we were thinking for a biobank, it may be yet another regulatory hurdle, but that's not actually how you saw it, Tiago.
That's not my opinion, because as discussed in the first section, it's very typical that in Portugal things are being changed quite quickly, sometimes unexpectedly, and we were already dealing in Portugal with a lot of regulation and a lot of things that we had to fulfill to do research. With GDPR, that is European-wide, that has been quite well thought, that has been quite well led to action also in hospitals and all our activities. It creates a quite clear framework for research for us concerning data protection. And so we know what we have to fulfill for all the research. And I have to say, for researchers, and my main purpose is that researchers, as this hospital feel helped and easy, and they have their work easier, to have all these quite nice and clear regulation also being applied now to the biobank. For us, again, it took some work, for sure it did, some discussion, but we having these guidelines that are not going to change tomorrow and that have been actually in effect for a few years, I don't think it was a big problem.
Archer?
Yeah, I said everything.
Alexandra?
I won't say that the GDPR are a roadblock or is too challenging, but the problem is that, or not the problem, the issue is that we have some uncertainties, what is allowed and how to handle this, especially if we are not looking internal. I think internal in our institution, it's very easy to set up biosampling and biocollections GDPR conform. But if you want to go outside and collaborate, especially European-wide, or what is the bigger problem is to collaborate with the United States, we have really some things to, some issues we have to think about. But I think we can handle this if we all collaborate and cooperate and discuss what solutions can maybe could be fine.
Alberto?
Well, I think that the problem of GDPR is just that you have like a new rule to follow at halfway, when you are already halfway. So prospectively is not a big problem, But certainly this was a problem for the usage of some of the stored samples and some of the procedures we had internally that we really had to adapt to the new regulations. So at the end, I would translate it, it's a little bit more work, an extra effort, but finally it ends up not being a barrier.
The difficulty for me, and then maybe it's more perspective, is the fact that, and I've talked about this with Paulo and Pedro, in the EU in general, and obviously here in Portugal and Spain, privacy is seen as a human right. Unfortunately, in the United States, it's a feature that can be charged a premium for, and then that colors a lot of our view. But that's also probably why we'll look to you all to teach us how to build sustainable business models to make this work, because it's too easy to point at ourselves and say, oh, we don't know how to do it, it can't work. But when we start seeing others make it work, it becomes a little harder to make that argument. So we'll look to you to take the lead if that's okay. I do want to get to your question about sustainability, if that's all right. I want to keep my promise. But there are financial and resource implications of creating a biobank that need to be taken into account. Now, in a university setting, the resources are abundant in some ways because you have the academic resources, the financial resources to a degree. You have the raw capital in a healthcare system or a hospital to work with as well. But I don't know if that's true for every biobank. Arturo, just I lead with it first, just because this leads into a sustainability and potentially future steps as well.
So as I told you before, I think that if we go where only the inputs from the collections and from the request of samples, this is not enough to become a biobank sustainable. So maybe in our case, we could achieve a specific budget from the two consorts that are enrolled in this consortium, from the university and from the university hospital. Or maybe we could re-educate the researchers when they look for a research project and they are founded, they could include some budget to biobank in order to keep the samples that they need to do the research in the specific research project and in other future research projects. So maybe put everything together could be easy to achieve a biobank sustainable.
Alberto?
Well, this is a general problem. So I think there are features of a biobank that help making it sustainable. So the first feature is that the researchers use more than what you collect. The second feature is that you can do analysis of your samples in the biobank and provide data derived from those analyses instead of samples. So that for the same data, researchers, don't need to spend the money in the experiments 10 times to get the same data from the same samples. So in this case, you could do the analysis and provide by a smaller amount of money of what it costs. But if you provide it 10 times, then maybe you can get money also to sustain the biobank working. So I think it's a little bit really to plan, design very carefully what you collect, what you do in the biobank with what you collect, and how you also charge your work in a way that it can be helpful to get sustainability for the biobank but at the same time, a benefit for the researcher because it doesn't has to do all the experiments, spend all the money with the experiments, and in addition, wait for the time of getting the data coming from the experiments. So for sure, you need like a basic funding for running the biobank. It's very important in parallel also to advise researchers that there is a cost associated with sample processing. And for sure, in Spain, you cannot charge for a sample. So a sample has to be always for free because it was a donation, and by law, you cannot sell it. But certainly what you can partially charge is the costs of sample processing, storing, and handling.
Thank you. Alexander.
Yeah, I totally agree with Alberto. So we at the Charité have, how can I say, 3 pillars. So we have a co-funding for, let's say, for the collection of samples which can be shared with different researchers, more disease specific, and with an open access and broad consent. The second pillar is that we are sampling project specific, so we get grant money or something like that. And I think in future we have to think about how we can make the biobanks and the samples more visible. So we can collaborate with other ones in Europe and find further models to refinance the biobanks. We all know that biobanking is not is very cost intensive because we would need devices which are very cost intensive.
I think better, but we have a very nice possibility of doing this sample analysis.
Yes, we are trying to develop what Alberto has already told us, that closely linked to the biobank, we need to create a sample characterization center to provide some data to the researchers that don't have a clear idea how to reach that kind of results. So we are trying to doing that in Coimbra. At this time point, we are able to do cellular characterization, but we are trying to move to molecular or even to have incorporated in the biobank some platforms for single cell analysis, which is really the future of the research.
You've kind of hit my last question for you all, and want to open it up, which was the future of biobanks, where you see things going. Obviously, we have a breadth and depth of knowledge here on this panel, but obviously, things aren't evolving and changing for biobanks, not only here in Coimbra, but internationally as well. Alexandra, I'll point to you first, if it's all right, to talk about where you see the future of biobanks going. Any challenges that you think that might prevent it, or do you see that it's all bright in the future?
Okay, I think we have now a great baseline. We have European-wide, well-developed biobanks, but now we have to go further on. So I think one topic is the digitalization of biobanks, so that researchers are able to find sufficient samples, and as well to share analysis results of these samples. So as Alberto said, there is no need to do an analysis which have been done maybe in another country. We need to focus on our resources. So we have to foster the value of biosamples.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to say first we're a bit of a starting now, so it's more easier to speak of what we are starting. But we have quite a few very important strengths from this hospital where it's headquartered, but also from the university. A lot of rare diseases. We are part of 10 European networks for rare diseases. So we will have the ability to create these very important collections, for example. But for the future, anyway, even starting, we are seeing some things that will be fundamental for biobanks in the future, and data with new forms of analysis and artificial intelligence, and more data with imaging data, for example, sometimes functional data. That will probably be a very important part of the future of biobanks, and of course the future of our own biobank. And another part that's been quite discussed is the collaboration with international partners. And for this, RGPD, for example, has been an advantage because our samples will have the same data protection that samples from Germany and other countries, for example. That will be an advantage. So for us, starting also in participating in national and international networks will have to be a natural next step. But for the future, long term, I would say data, different types of data, other forms of capturing data like devices and artificial intelligence.
I agree with Tiago, and I could say also that data is really important, not only, for instance, at time of diagnosis of a particular disease, but also during follow-up. And to collect all of this data, for sure, will increase the research and will increase the number of researchers that will need biobanks.
Alberto.
Well, I think the first thing to add to samples is really data about the samples, the patients, the individuals. So I think that's a clear complement that I would say is mandatory for high quality samples. The second part is, as Arthur has mentioned, and also Alexandra, to be able to provide that type of information that requires an analysis of the samples, to do it centrally and be able to provide it to multiple researchers. So you have to identify what type of information. So for instance, in the very beginning, we identified that people was looking at SNP data, single nucleotide polymorphism data of the Spanish population. So we characterized 5,000 samples, so that data is now available. So we have many researchers asking every year for that data. The third part is where the type of samples you store is evolving. So at present, for instance, we have added to our human biobank, we have added a biobank of animal models of disease. We have added a biobank of PDX models, so models of human tumors grown in mice. There are some centers in the Spanish hub of biobanks that have also added biobanks of organoids, for instance. So organs based on 3D printing, that's another type of unit. So looking at also where the future is going in terms of tissues and organs, and evaluate whether for your biobank it's worth or not to invest in these new areas.
Pretty impressive. Sorry, we had feedback again. That's pretty impressive future when you think about it. Just going from raw materials that are collected initially from a pathology lab all the way to 3D biobank printing and printing new organs for you folks. I'm looking at some of the folks in the audience. It may not be us. It may be you that'll be building some of this. So you're not off the hook. You'll have to pick up where they've left off here. But the future does look bright for biobanks if it's designed properly. Again, I'm very honored to be here. Thank you so much for letting me moderate this discussion. It's been very educational for me. And Representative Daedalus, I'll make sure to bring this back to our team. So hopefully we can talk to you all later to see if we can help build some of this in the future. Thank you, everyone.
Few presentations prepared, but they will be available for everybody in the virtual space that we have organized for this event, and we are going to post them also on our channel. So for some interesting presentations about the Charity Biobank and also the Coimbra Biobank, they will be available. And I'm sure also from Professor Orfon, these presentations will be available. So please stay tuned in our channels, and anyone in the room that would like to have these presentations, please come to me, and we'll make sure that you'll join the virtual space where we have all this content, and also the discussions with the guest speakers could be going. And thank you so much, moderators and panelists, for keeping the time. We are right on time to invite the next moderator, which is Pedro Cid Ferreira, a co-founder of Digital Health Portugal, and my associate and partner in Digital Health Portugal. Is a pleasure to work with Pedro because he's a serial entrepreneur, a person with a vision on the future of how future of technologies can impact all sectors of society, but of course, healthcare in particular, Pedro. And good to have you here. And please take the seat, as I also would like to invite the other panelists that are here in this new tract. This is the business perspective on the health data. So kindly inviting Carlos Jaime from ASCOM, Peter Vilax, CEO of Mediceus, and I think if I'm missing someone that could be present here. We have Luis Valente from I Love remotely, correct? Vanessa will be here from I Love. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for being here. And I apologize that I didn't updated the agenda program. You're so kind to be here in person. And scientific director of I Love, so I'm sure that she's been contributing a lot. From remote, we have also yes, Carlos Zago. Bom dia. It's quite early in Brazil,
Morning.
I know, right, Carlos?
Yeah.
Fine-tuning here. And Alexandre Lourenço, last but not least, from arriving from home. Alexandre, good. Welcome to the panel. It's great to see Alexandre Lourenço again. He's currently director in the Centro Hospitalar Universitário Coimbra, but was former president of the Portuguese Association of Hospital Administrators. I think we have now the full panel. Pedro, over to you, and let's keep the time, if you may. Thank you so much.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, to the ones present here, and also people that are attending online through our digital channels. My name is Pedro Cid. I'm the co-founder of Digital Health Portugal, together with Paulo Nunes de Abreu, that will present the next session. So the subject of this table will be the biobank from a business perspective. I think I will be a little bit like the devil in the room, knowing that there are some ghosts and probably elephants in a good way, like the GDPR and other kind of issues. But Well, I'm here to do my job. So, and to help doing my job, I'm very glad to present Vanessa. Vanessa Pinto is a clinical biologist coordinator at ILOF. ILOF is a Portuguese startup that created a platform based on machine and deep learning algorithms to accelerate patient choice in clinical trials. Having a master's in cellular and molecular biology, Vanessa focused her work on the study of extracellular cellular vesicles derived from human blood. Since 2019, Vanessa has been dedicated to helping ILOF develop its flexible and agnostic platform, which combines photonics and artificial intelligence to analyze blood derived biofluids and offers a solution for both research and medical settings. Vanessa is also responsible for the clinical study of the differential diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease and who has been established several partnerships with Biobanks for samples access. So nice to have you here. Alexandre Lourenço is the hospital administrator at Coimbra Hospital and University Center, so this place here, and adjunct assistant professor at the Nova School of Public Health, having performed also some public functions in various institutions of the Portuguese Ministry of Health. Is a consultant at the World Health Organization for the areas of financing, health system strengthening, and health services delivery. He's also the co-chair of the World Hospital Congress and member of the IT Health Steering Committee on the EHDS. He holds a PhD in management from Nova School of Business and Economics in Lisbon. He's a specialist in hospital administration, a postgraduate in the primary healthcare management, and with a master in health management from Nova. Is also the former president of the Portuguese Association of Hospital Administrators, a former board member of the European Association of Hospital Managers, and currently treasurer of the European Health Management Association. Thank you very much for your presence. Carlos Zago has built an impressive career that spans medicine, business, and biotechnology. He began his journey in the medical field, earning his degree in medicine before deciding to expand his horizons by pursuing an MBA in business management. Later, he honed his skills in strategy through a specialization program at the Harvard Business School. As the CEO of MKM Biotech, he leads a Brazilian venture capital company that is dedicated to investing in scientific research and promising biotech startups. Thank you, Carlos. Carlos Jaime, he has built his professional career over nearly 30 years in large international technology companies in the health sector. He is now the ASCOM General Director of France, Portugal, and Spain. ASCOM is a multinational company with communication and collaboration solutions for healthcare facilities, healthcare entities. Carlos is also very connected to the ecosystem of startups, namely the area of digital health. Thank you also, Carlos. I have with me also Peter Villax. He's a 35-year career. He has a 35-year career in the pharmaceutical industry in the Ovion Group, and has been dedicated since 2015 to investing in health technology startups. He founded Medseus, the first Portuguese free collaborative health data platform that aims to create a new scientific information to treat patients better, give accurate information to the health professional, and promote product innovation. Medseus is leading a 24 million investment in digital health called Data for Life, together with 20 members. Data for Life is scaling up the world's first privacy-preserving digital health platform with 100% compliance with the GDPR. It includes 4 major healthcare providers with access to 3.8 million patients annually, 6 universities and 9 tech companies. So thank you also, Peter. Thank you all. I think I will start with Carlos Jaime. I know that you have been closely following the creation and management of biobanks in several geographies. You are based in France. Of course, you have a particular interest in France. Genomics, personalized medicine, and of course the rare diseases research are some of the examples where the biobanks could be applied. Would you like to share with us the main challenges and today's concerns regarding to the funding and economic profitability of these collections of information? So what is your point of view regarding France and, for instance, other kind of geographies?
Yeah, thank you to invite me. Do you know what is the innovation that's increased the life expectation in the world during the last 100 years?
Sewers. Public health.
Clean water.
Clean water. Sewers.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm convinced that the clean data will be the next to improve the life for patients, the life for medical team, and the life also for whole the society. I'm trying to explain why I'm involved in this digital health. I'm involved in the digital health market since 30 years, and I'm leading in the health ministry in France, the digital health innovation platform, and to help the company to develop the business potential for digital health data in the market in France, but also outside France. We have several initiatives in France since a few years. The government invests a lot of cash in Plan Cancer oncology plan to create biobanks in several places in France. And currently, we are investing a lot of cash for genomic plan to create a genomic biobank also available for research in France. The market potential currently, we have one large player in France named IQVIA. He's an international player. He's doing a lot of cash. I think the turnover achieved by IQVIA in biobank, selling data is close to more than 1 billion euros, but the market potential is much higher. And you have a lot of initiative in the French market. Currently, what we are seeing, what we are evaluating, what we are living in France, you have several biobanks. You have private and public. The largest one is APHP Biobank. APHP is the largest public hospital organization in Europe. And they are providing to the internal researcher for free the access of biobank. You have one famous currently led by INSERM Unicancer, but also with a private connection with Roche, and very successful. It's probably the most successful one because you have a synergy between private and public organization to improve and to use biobanks to improve research. And I have the chance to create the UPrécimed cluster in France with Laboratoire Servier, with OncoDesign. The objective of this cluster was to merge all the expertise on the data available in the French market to accelerate the development of new molecules. What we are seeing that the average cost to develop a molecule is 3 billion euros in average. And the objective is to reduce the time between innovation and market introduction, and to reduce the time to create a cluster to help all the ecosystem to be much more successful and to collaborate better and to share the best practices.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I will come back to you. Vanessa, for a company like ILOF, how does access to biobanks help to balance and make profitable your business model? And by the way, is the relationship I love biobanks a unidirectional relationship or a bidirectional relationship? So I will explain. For instance, in what instance the share of I love in the improvement and, for instance, the relevance of the quality of the samples collected is really a bidirectional relationship with the biobanks. Can you explain a little bit more?
So thank you for the invitation to be here, and thank you for the introduction. To give more context, I love is a startup company and a spin-off of the University of Porto. As you mentioned, we are developing our technology that combines photonics and artificial intelligence. And our main goal is to analyze samples, usually blood-derived samples. We have distant projects. One of the main, probably the main project that we have is the one, the study that we are running with different hospitals in our country. So a multi-centric study for the differential diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. We are running this study by ourselves. We are the promoters of the study. And we have the help from hospitals and medical doctors and the entire team. The professionals. To arrive at this point, and so back to 2019, we were basically starting, and we had the technology, we had the lab, the resources, the human resources.
A little bit of money also.
Yeah, a little bit of money. We won an EITF program, so we had money for at least two years, but we had no samples. So biobanks were essential at that point, because it will be really hard for us to start a study with no data. Biobanks were really important and crucial. We were able to establish different collaborations. Unfortunately, at that time, we couldn't find any Portuguese biobank to collaborate with, but we had to move to our neighbor in Spain, and we partnered with different biobanks from there, and we ran our first analysis, and so that helped us to build our initial model. And those results are now supporting the development of this larger study that I mentioned. So biobanks were crucial, and well, obviously from an honest perspective, the samples from biobanks are way much cheaper than the commercial ones, and now we also we are running this study, so we are responsible for everything. So since the study submission, to run all the entire logistics, we prepared the blood collection kit. So, and we now know that it's really expensive to run a study like this, and just a simple blood collection kit will cost as much as we paid for one sample 3 years ago. So it's really hard for biobanks to keep to have a sustainable organization, but they are really important to help researchers developing the studies. The second question, it depends. Sometimes it's unidirectional, and in other cases is bidirectional. We are now collaborating with the IMM Biobank in Lisbon, and it's a good example of a bidirectional relationship. Yeah.
Okay. Peter, we know that biobanks are a valuable source of data that can greatly assist personalized medicine. Also knowing that the global biobank market was valued around $71 billion in 2022, and is expected to expand at the compound annual growth rates around 8.6% from 2023 to 2030. And now I'm focusing a little bit about MedSales. What is the rationale behind the platform that makes free health data available in an integrated and very transparent way? So did you, as the temptation of data monetization ever knocked at your door, or that is not its way behind the spirit of MedSales?
Okay, several questions. Several questions. Let's start with one of perhaps many answers. The first one is that our job in relation to biobanks is not to create another one, but to join them. To join biobanks, the most important thing that can be done from a business and a strategic perspective right now. IMM, Instituto de Medicina Molecular, has, I believe, 200 people in its biobank. It's not enough. We need hundreds of thousands. We need millions of people in biobanks. So from a technical point of view, I'll go a little bit into the technical side of things. The first thing is that we need to come up with a set of interoperability standards for biobanks, so that the researcher, using another piece of kit, which is federated processing, can process the data from all the biobanks as a single virtual database. Okay? Very important. The two things, interoperability and seamless federated processing. And so that's, in itself, it's not enough. It needs to be associated with clinical data. A biobank by itself can be used for forensic research, criminal investigation, genealogy, finding out who your parents are, paternity suits, and fundamental investigation. I mean, I just thought about it driving from Lisbon. These are the immediate uses of biobanks. If you associate it with clinical data, the response of Peter to a drug in a clinical trial, did he respond? Did he not respond? Was he cured? Did he die? Then your genetic data becomes extremely important, because you compare Peter's clinical profile with the identical clinical profiles of the people in the biobank. So Peter does not have to be in the biobank. Similar people to me need to be in the biobank. So the biobank needs to have clinical profiles as well, okay? And then we'll go and see how do these people that have the same reaction as Peter in the clinical trial, what's their genetic profile? What mutation, what gene could explain the fact that he responded, did not respond, survived, or died? So this association is vital, and that's what we're doing. I mean, you mentioned this consortium. I'll just mention 3 partners that are really important. We have Charité Institute of Medical Bioinformatics. We have Tallinn University, and they came to us because they created Estonia's digital health system before GDPR, and they've come to us because of GDPR. And then we have the data operator of the Turkish National Health Service. And you'll be amazed to know, but Turkey is extremely advanced in digital health. So we're going to have access to 6.2 billion medical records. The Estonia Biobank and Tallinn and Charité. And these are just 3 of the partners. There's a number of partners in this. So the challenge is to discuss what Vanessa's doing, what Carlos is doing. It's incredible, the opportunity. Now, you mentioned an elephant, GDPR. And Vanessa mentioned access. These are the key points. GDPR, protection of personal data and privacy rights and access to the data. So we started working on this digital health platform 4 years ago, and I can say that what we did is an expression of GDPR. So we used every single concept in GDPR to develop our platform. Pseudonymization, data minimization, identified purposes. We comply, and we have a legal opinion that says we comply. Wonderful. So check. Once the data arrives to the researcher, and we're going to follow European Health Data Space, the regulation that was published in May last year, we're going to offer the researcher a clean, interoperable, curated data set to start working immediately without any bureaucratic hassle.
Carlos will be very happy to have it.
I mean, of course, we're going to talk after. And Vanessa represents the problem every single researcher or entrepreneurial researcher has, which is access. We need to be able to give access on a massive scale for research purposes. And if you solve EHDS and if you solved GDPR, then you can give access to researchers. Finally, monetization. Monetization is an extremely sensitive subject. And at this, of course, we have monetization objectives, but at this point, we need to show benefit, advantages, results for the value proposition, for the patient, for the healthy citizen, for the doctor, for the regulator, for the health authority, for the academic, for the startup. Then we will be able to monetize the results, never the data. The data belongs to the data subject. It belongs to the citizen. And you cannot give data sets to people. Otherwise, you lose consent tracking. You can no longer withdraw consent if a citizen withdraws consent. Sorry, I'm a bit late, but you gave me a very long question. Okay.
I love the idea of being a connector of biobanks.
We're a connector of biobanks. So I'll go silent.
Okay, I will go back to you. Carlos, I have worked for some time in Latin America, and especially in Brazil, in the technology area. And I will say this without any kind of double interpretation, but several times I used to say that if it worked in Brazil, it will work anywhere. And because the dimension, the complexity, I remember when Visa, the credit card, Visa online, the algorithm was not prepared to the Brazil specification. So imagine. And of course, in Brazil, the health area has had some challenges. And my question to you is a role as an investor in life science companies. Can you give us like business models or revenue sources examples related to the exploitation of information from biobanks? Or if you want, for you, what is a good bet regarding the business profile of health companies? Can you, with your Brazilian twist and ecosystem, give us some answers to those questions?
Sure. Firstly, it's a pleasure to be here, to be able to talk to you here from Brazil. And Peter actually was really right when he said that we can't monetize the data, but you can monetize the results and you can monetize the work that we do around this data. So a few business models that we are looking here in American Biotech as investors. You can use the biobank data for drug discovery. You can use all the genomic data that you have to test new drugs, to develop new drugs. That's something that we are currently investing in here in Brazil. You can use that for research services, like you can monetize using this data to do academic research, to help the industry research. You can do genomic analysis, and you asked me the million-dollar question, right? What's a good bet? Well, right now, genomic analysis seems to be the most the right bet to do at this moment. That's what you can actually monetize, do the genomic analysis, and build these biobanks. We all seen what 23andMe has become, one of the largest biobanks in the world, gathering genomic data from almost the entire population of the USA. I'm exaggerating here, but they have a very strong marketing campaign. Everybody is doing the 23andMe tests, and they are just building and building and building this biobank. This is actually really, really profitable. Really profitable because people want to do their genomic analysis. And we are in a time in humanity that is really good that we have this genomic data, because that's the first time in our history that we are being able to touch our DNA. Like in the pandemic, we have seen that. We have the first DNA drugs, actually RNA drugs, coming around with the vaccine. So everything that we are doing right now regarding drug discovery, the next big cycle, the next big thing regarding drug discovery is going to be genetic treatments. So if you have a genomic biobank, that's really can be really profitable. That has a lot of value, because we are going to start developing more and more and more genetic drugs. Another use that you can do to biobanks that you can profit around it is personalized medicine that's directly connected to the genomic analysis. We can tailor drugs to target specific genes and to target specific diseases, and we can do that analysis through biobank data. And the data analytics itself can be of a lot of value for governments, for healthcare providers, to identify certain risk populations, and that kind of stuff. Here in Brazil, like to do the tropical twist, actually we have very rich biobanks here, because we have a very diverse population. Like Brazil, around its history, received migrants from Europe, from Asia, from North America. So our population has a very diverse DNA. So when the pharmaceutical company is looking to test a new drug, test in a population that is, so we have such a mixed DNA. Let's put it like that. That has a lot of value to them. So that's what we are looking here in Brazil. That's what we are investing. And the big bet right now, I'll say, is the genomic analysis.
Thank you, Carlos. Now passing to Alexandre. Alexandre, having performed professional functions in the public sector and in the health entities of with a huge and great relevance in the economic and social context in which they operate. Of course, you have experience, and so I will ask you a little bit to help us join the pieces that are being discussing here today. So, how does the business vision fit with the creators and the users' perspective in this context of the biobanks? And also, how do you see the public health sector and the private stakeholders of the area? So there are some synergies that are already being made, or it will be like business as usual and each one thinking about their own goals and objectives. Can you give us a comment?
Well, I will try it. First of all, let me congratulate you and the whole organization for this event that is quite relevant. I must say that I have some students attending, some students in the master's degree in clinical research management that are attending this important meeting and this discussion that actually is quite up to date. It's quite relevant for the ones that are developing research, but also for the ones that are managing and trying to managing clinical research. And it's quite important to bring it to Coimbra University Hospital, mostly because we are in the early stage in developing a biobank. And of course, we are going to learn also from all this sharing between all the participants. This is a very interesting topic. First of all, there is always possibility to develop business models on this kind of developments. I believe that even in our case, that under the leadership of our CEO, Carlos Santos, and Professor Artur Paiva, we developed a model that is mostly based in a non-profit model, and it relied mostly in public investments. And in that sense, I believe that most of the biobanks are being built in that sense. Even the APHP model that was previously mentioned, it is a public investment initiative. And most of these biobanks, even the EMM model in Lisbon, they are mostly funded and they rely on public funding for at least the initial investment or capital investment for operating. I believe that this kind of biobanks, of course, they have their role. They can, of course, support their own researchers, but they have a limited scope. Mostly because it was mentioned, biobanks are very highly costly to operate. And in that sense, even relying, for example, in a public hospital just to fund the biobank that is not under this core business, it's not enough. And in that sense, it needs to develop partnerships. One of our examples is that we have, and I see here, Professor Lino Gonçalves from the Portuguese Cardiology Society, is to develop partnerships with other organizations where we can really develop our biobank, mostly also to get better samples, to have better data. And in that sense, developing partnerships and joint ventures with non-profit organizations, but also other profit organizations can be a way of achieving sustainability of a biobank. And of course, this level of partnerships depend a lot in the way that we would like the biobank to evolve. I'm not against partnerships with the private sector. I believe that they're quite relevant. Even we have examples of public organizations across Europe that partner with private partnerships, of course, with strong contracts where the limitation, the responsibility of each of the partners. But in that sense, for example, pharmaceutical companies are quite interesting on that. I believe that most of all the development in digital will be quite interesting, this kind of data. But also it represents a challenge for our development as a biobank. Mostly because we really need to not only to have biological samples, but also to gather digital and standardized data on it. And some points, most of the biobanks they develop mostly as a collection, a library of samples.
An array of information.
Yeah, and in that sense, we really need to join this kind of biological information with data and mostly life cycle data about the patients. That's the strength of the biobank. I believe that we are in the phase, even at the European level, and last week we have I'm a member of the steering committee for the European Health Data Space. And we had a discussion what it needs to be done to mostly to implement it, because even though we have some regulations now and it is on discussion, we really don't know what will be the European Health Data Space at this point. We can have expectations about it, and high expectations usually bring high frustrations. But we really need to think in how we can develop European Health Data Space and how we can incorporate it in these kind of projects like Biobanks, and how we can partner with the digital companies and other partners to strengthen the quality and the value of our libraries. Of course, from there, we can evolve to even to, and from those partnerships that I think that they will be more profitable, we can, and there are biobanks everywhere that use fee-for-service models, that they sell their libraries or their data to specific purposes. But again, I believe that the development of these biobanks and as a biobank, it will depend a lot in the level of partnerships and the enrichment of our collections.
Okay, thank you. Sustainability was mentioned, I think, in the previous session, and my personal opinion, I think that the monetization also needs to be out in perspective with the sustainability of the models, because we are talking about funding, but public funding, and the results are expected to arrive, and in short term, in the short term. So even from that perspective, monetization can be something to talk about.
There is always a space. I don't know if I'm out of line, but
No.
There is always a space in the idea that public biobanks, they should be self-sustained by public funding. So, and I believe that the point here is that the value of biobank, it will depend on the level of partnership that they will have. Even in our case, our biobank is much more richer with a partnership with the Portuguese Cardiology Society. And it will grow from there. So this kind of levels of partnerships will allow the growth of the biobanks. And of course, it can be mostly financial relationships or these partnerships, but they will grow in the ability of growing our libraries, enriching of our data, and allow to have this high-level partnerships with different international partners.
Okay, thank you. So we are reaching the time, and I will use a strategy of my colleague Paulo Gabriel when we are reaching the time. So if you had like a magic wand to solve an issue regarding the biobanks, if you had one wish to do, what wish you will choose to reach your goal or to solve your problem? Or Peter?
Yes, absolutely. With my magic wand, I want public sector and the private sector to come together as quickly as possible. Note that Dolchamps did not say, I am for private projects. He said, I'm not against private projects. Okay? And we need to accept monetization within rules and with consent. We need to accept monetization. And instead of setting up dozens of biobanks, we need to join them together. My magic wand.
That's a good wish. Carlos. Okay. Are you hearing? I think you froze. With Carlos, do you want to choose a wish?
My wish is to create a European biobank, merging all the biobanks in Europe with the same rules on respecting European regulation. This one will help us to create a much more dynamic and profitable ecosystem, will help us to save life, because we'll be able to make personalized medicine treatment, and will also give us the opportunity to increase the revenue of hospitals thanks to data, to value of the data. And this revenue will help patients to have a better treatment, better hospitalization quality. And everyone will be successful if we are all able to work together with clean data. So what I discussed during this breakfast morning, we need to educate medical staff to put in the EHR clean data, relevant data, to be industrialized and to be used by all with the same reference. We say registre, same registre. And we need that at the European level. If we are able to do that, I think it's more a political decision. But Europe will be, thanks to RGPD or GDPR regulation, Europe will be the most successful region in the world for data management and developing new treatments, and I'm sure.
Okay, thank you. Carlos, I don't know if you heard the question, but it's very simple. You have a magic one to ask for a wish regarding biobanks or things related to biobanks. What will be your wish?
Yeah, I guess the most essential thing that I would wish right now is to establish like clear regulations and clear guidelines regarding the use in biobanks and our clear way to ensure that all the ethical principles are being followed at all the stages of the process. Because if you have these regulations, if you have these guidelines, if you are sure we're acting in an ethical way, then we can be free to monetize and we can be free to develop business models around, and these regulations need to be in place so we can be sure that we can establish something that will last, that will provide value, and then can be used for the improvement of the health of the population.
Thank you, Carlos. Vanessa.
Yeah. I agree with everything. Yeah, I think we need to. It will be helpful to join efforts from the public and the company side as well. I believe that there is still a lot of work to do also first in our country and before having an European consortium or and to follow the same guidelines, because in our country I think it's hard to map all the biobanks to know where they are located, what kind of samples they have, their collections. That will be also great to change. Yeah, we don't need more biobanks, but if they work together and connected, yeah, it will be nice to have, because from our experience, we are working really closely with the medical doctors from the Hospital São João, if we had a biobank there, there will be good for both, and instead of we are having our own collection, the biobank will also have part of the collection, and it will be better for us because it will help us with all the logistics that it involves to run a clinical study. So it will be benefit for everyone.
The suggestion for Vanessa is to come to work in Coimbra.
Yeah. Probably.
We have a collaboration bureau. Yeah, and
okay. So if I may, I will also. I have also a wish, knowing that help. I'm sorry.
Maybe
I'm sorry.
I have a spare wish.
Now,
no, my small wish. I believe that, of course, the European biomedical leadership, global leadership, depends a lot on the digital at this point, and we are aware of it. I believe that as a community, European community, we are aware of it. But also, it starts locally. And my work is mostly to think locally. And what we need for biobanks at this point is really to achieve autonomy, that we need to have better human resources, we need to be able to hire them, because I believe that mostly applying for funding, it will be possible if we have the correct human resources working on it. And for that, we need autonomy, and probably to have this level of autonomy for biobanks will allow them to grow much faster than they are doing it.
Pedro, let me add just something to what Alexandre said. We need to solve a huge problem, is that EHDS is there in terms of vision, and attitudes are not there. The attitude is usually the data's mine. I'm not going to share it. The patient is not capable of accessing or having the data. EHDS is something that needs to win, and we're already aligned with EHDS.
So I think it's a beautiful ending, but I will also have my wish, and my wish is knowing that health is a very important thing, a very delicate issue. I think that health could learn and to be open to see what other industries, what other sectors already did, challenges that they had with human resources, with sharing information. So I think also a little bit of open, to be open also to study what are being done in other areas, of course, knowing that health is health. Okay, this is my wish, and I end here my session. Thank you all for this moment, and hope to see you in the next table. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Pedro, for keeping the time, and panelists, amazing. We have our audience sticking with us, but right now, for the ones who are here, we deserve a break. We are going to have our coffee break here. For the ones who are not attending, please take some time. We are going to stop the stream now, and we'll be back here in exactly 30 minutes. So 30 minutes, whatever your local time is. From right now, we'll be back here with you. It's great to have this physical audience here, because now we can have the coffee all together. And it's great to have you following us on social media. I hope you're benefiting from this, the contents that are being produced here. Thank you so much, and see you in 30 minutes.